Have you ever wondered if Edinburgh Castle is haunted? With over 900 years of history, surely there have been at least one or two ghosts spotted on the ground, right? Or weird whispers could have been heard from the stone walls that surround the castle. Or could all of the ghostly experiences be caused by gusts of wind that were mistaken for whispers and cold spots throughout the castle? Edinburgh Castle has been home to hundreds of executions, including those of accused witches being burned at the stake at the castle's entrance. The castle stood tall as the Nor Loch was filled with waste and used as dunking grounds to gain confessions from witches. It has endured the plague and countless wars. The castle has been through a lot of history, and throughout time it was used as a home to the royals, as military barracks, and was once the location of a prison for prisoners of war. Edinburgh is known for being one of the world's most haunted cities, which helps make Edinburgh Castle a hot spot for ghostly activity. There have been tales of ghosts wandering the Great Hall and stories about spirits of the prisoners held in the dungeons wreaking havoc on anyone who enters their space. In addition, the ghost stories have been confirmed by many visitors of the castle, as several people have witnessed shadowy figures, temperature changes, and ghostly sounds. Some of these stories I've learned over the years from staff that work at the castle, friends who grew up surrounded by the haunted stories in Edinburgh, and from the best storytellers on ghost tours who regale you with the horror stories of Edinburgh's dark past. Some stories were created and passed down through the years and get darker, with more twists added to them through each retelling, while others remain the same as the first day they were told. People feel the spirits as they walk through the castle grounds. Some see the famous specters, while others have their own personal connections. Whether or not you believe in ghosts or love the spooky history that comes out of a castle that has survived for nearly 1,000 years, the ghost stories from Edinburgh Castle are creepy and terrifying. They might be scary enough to keep you up at night, thinking about which spirit you might come in contact with the next time you visit the castle. The Ghost of the Piper Boy. If you've heard about any ghosts that haunt Edinburgh Castle, chances are you've listened to the tale of the ghost of the Piper Boy. The Piper Boy's fate is tragic and remains as mysterious today as it was the day it happened. It is said that below the Royal Mile sits a series of underground tunnels. These are not the tunnels that make up former closes like Mary King's Close, nor are they part of the very haunted vaults that sit below the cobbled street. Instead, these tunnels are part of an escape route leading from Edinburgh Castle to Holyrood Palace. Legend says a young Piper boy was sent into the tunnels, instructed to play his bagpipes as loud as possible so the sound would be carried through the ground up to the Royal Mile above. Once the boy reached the Tron Kirk, the sounds of his bagpipes stopped. Total silence, as though he had suddenly disappeared. Perhaps he had fallen down a hole in the tunnels and eventually perished. Or he kept following the tunnels, but the sound was too muffled that it could no longer be heard from above. Whatever happened, the boy never returned. Worried about what happened, a group of people went down into the tunnel in an attempt to find the boy and bring him out to safety. However, the search party could never find the boy, and no one knew what had happened to him. The tunnels were eventually sealed off, and his fate was never discovered, as he was never seen again. Was he buried alive, or did he die mysteriously? Either way, his ghost still lingers through the tunnels, playing his bagpipes for the people above, letting them know that he is still around. Some accounts claim that the Piper Boy was a soldier, while others say it was a boy because the tunnels were so small he was the only one who could fit inside. The story of it being a child is much scarier, as he was cast into the shadows of a labyrinth of mysterious tunnels that would wind and turn all over the place, making it very easy to get lost. If you were ever on the Royal Mile before all the tourists, locals, and people who play bagpipes near St. Giles Cathedral are out, be sure to keep quiet and listen for the faint sounds of ghostly bagpipes playing deep beneath the street near the Tron Kirk. The Headless Drummer Boy. The next ghost that haunts Edinburgh Castle is the Headless Drummer Boy. This is a ghost you do not want to come across, not only because he's terrifying, but when he was first spotted in 1650, his sighting was immediately followed by a gruesome attack on Edinburgh Castle by Oliver Cromwell. When the Headless Drummer Boy was spotted, he wandered around the castle walls for all to see. Along with the sight of his ghostly spectre, he was accompanied by the sound of his drums playing an old Scottish war tune. He was first spotted drumming his heart out in the central courtyard of Edinburgh Castle by several servants who noted that he was missing his head, and they chose not to interact with him out of fear. He drummed through the night and disappeared the following morning, only to soon be followed by the deadly attack. What makes this ghost particularly terrifying is that he is headless, which is creepily similar to the fate of former King Charles I, who was executed by beheading just 1 year before the ghost of the drummer boy was spotted. The spirit is said to appear as a warning that the castle is about to come under attack. Luckily for everyone in Edinburgh, the ghost of the Headless Drummer Boy hasn't been spotted in ages. However, staff at the castle have said they can sometimes hear the faint sounds of a drum at all hours of the night. So the Headless Drummer Boy is still lingering in the shadows, waiting to warn everyone of the next attack. The Ghost Dog of Edinburgh Castle. Deep within Edinburgh Castle sits a tiny cemetery for dogs. The cemetery dates back to 1837, during Queen Victoria's reign, and is the burial ground for regimental mascots and officers' dogs. The cemetery has several little tombstones engraved with the names of the dogs buried below. My favorite tombstone is shaped like a little doghouse, but unfortunately the name of the dog buried there has been weathered off of the tomb from the rainy Scottish weather. The cemetery can be viewed from above from the Argyll Battery, which overlooks Princess Street Gardens outside of the castle walls. Not only is the cemetery adorable, but such a great honor to all of the dogs that lived alongside the soldiers at Edinburgh Castle. It has also been home to a tale of a ghostly dog. 2 dogs, actually. The first dog is thought to be the spirit of one of the dogs buried in the castle. Visitors and staff have heard distant sounds of barking, howling, and scratching. People have also claimed to see the ghostly dog and have described him as a black dog with scruffy fur surrounded by a constant, misty outline. However, he isn't the only animal spotted roaming around Edinburgh Castle. Another dog has been spotted hanging out with the ghost of Lady Glams. People have reported seeing her ghostly figure walking alongside a small white dog. So maybe the two of them are keeping each other company in the afterlife. Prisoners of War exhibition. Deep below Edinburgh Castle's Crown Square sits a dark dungeon that used to be filled with prisoners of war. With so many prisoners over so many years, often living in squalor, chances are some of the tortured souls are still lingering in the dungeons, waiting to be released, unaware that they are dead. Walking through the Prisoners of War exhibition will give you a glimpse of the awful living conditions that the former prisoners had to endure. The dungeons were dark, cramped, full of rats, and incredibly uncomfortable for everyone. Rumor has it that some prisoners were tortured and beaten so severely that they died in the dark prison vaults. With so many horrific deaths, you would think that there would be more ghost sightings, but surprisingly, most of the ghost stories didn't start until 2003, when renovations took place at the castle. When construction workers started renovating, the ghosts of the prisoners of the Napoleonic Wars began to wake up. Workers claimed they were harassed by the ghosts and refused to work in the area. If you manage to spend time in the prisoners of war exhibition alone, you may feel uneasy as though someone is lurking in the shadows, keeping an eye on you as you walk past all of the displays that used to be a reality to several prisoners. You can hear faint whispers and the sounds of men chatting. The dark dungeon is full of prisoners' uniforms hanging off the ropes attached to the fabric beds hanging from the rafters. Bits of bread and soup, tiny cups of water left over on nearby tables, and cold drifts move through the dungeon bars, leaving you feeling similar experiences as the prisoner who once filled the vaults. Over the years, at least 49 prisoners successfully escaped the prison. But one man's escape didn't last long. This former prisoner faced a horrific and disgusting death when he tried to escape the castle's dark and damp prison. In an attempt to be brought out of the castle by the hands of others, he decided to hide in a dung barrow, believing that the dung would be carried out of the castle along with his freedom. Unfortunately for the prisoner and the people below the rocky crags of the castle, the dung, complete with the hidden prisoner, was thrown over the rocks, and he plunged to his death in the most unfortunate way. Some stories say that he is known for trying to push guests over the edge of the castle walls, thus meeting the same fate he did. So if you notice a foul stench of manure as you walk around Edinburgh Castle, you may want to step away from the castle's walls, just in case. The ghost with the leather apron. Imagine getting the eerie feeling of being watched or feeling a burning sensation on your arm. Then, as you turn around, you see a spooky-looking man wearing a leather apron appearing randomly in a doorway. People who have come into contact with the ghost wearing the leather apron have reported experiencing this. The first sighting occurred in 2001 when a group of volunteers headed deep within Edinburgh Castle to do a research project. This wasn't just any research project. The whole premise was an attempt to see if Edinburgh Castle was haunted, and the research group went in without any idea they were looking for signs of ghosts. Most of the volunteers had seen several of the ghosts that Edinburgh Castle is known for, and discovered the spooky man in a leather apron walking right through the doorway of Edinburgh Castle's prison vaults during their stay. The ghosts of accused witches. With so much brutal witch history surrounding Edinburgh Castle, there have been rumors of the spirits of people accused of witchcraft lingering near the castle's esplanade. Throughout the witch trials in Scotland, somewhere between 300 and 400 people were burned at the stake next to the castle. No spirits have been sighted within the castle walls, but there are reports of the ghost of an accused witch who spends her time roaming the nearby restaurant and hotel called the Witchery by the Castle. I wouldn't be surprised if the spirits of former witches lingered outside of the castle walls. One confirmed spirit tied to witchcraft is that of Janet Douglas, Lady of Glams. She has sometimes been known as the Grey Lady and has been seen wandering around the castle by several guests and staff over the years. When visiting Edinburgh Castle, stop by the Witch's Well and pay your respects for all of the lives lost during the Great Scottish Witch Hunt. The Grey Lady, Lady Janet Douglas of Glams. The spirit of a Grey Lady has often been spotted wandering around the castle, often accompanied by a small, ghostly dog. It is said to be the ghost of Janet Douglas, Lady of Glams Castle. Her story is tragic, and unfortunately she suffered greatly at the hands and words of others, which resulted in her life being cut short. The reason? Someone accused Lady Glams of poisoning her first husband and said she had plans to poison the king. This was reason enough to be charged with treason, and she was thrown in prison in Edinburgh. During her time in Edinburgh, Janet Douglas was tortured for a confession, and her family members and servants from Glams Castle were also targeted. Her servants eventually cracked and provided false evidence that helped prove that she was guilty. Of course she wasn't, but that didn't matter because they wanted a confession to execute her. And in 1537, she was hanged and burned at the stake on Castle Hill. Once she perished, sightings of a grey lady had been spotted wandering the castle. Her cries of pain are often heard just before her ghostly apparition disappears. Her ghost has also been spotted in Glamis Castle, so be on the lookout for her spirit at whichever castle you visit. And that's it. If you've been to Edinburgh Castle, did you ever feel any ghostly spirits watching you? Or did you hear the faint voices of former prisoners? Or feel light tugs on your clothing when no one else is around? Or are you like me, who has visited the castle several times and never got noticed by any of the ghosts? Maybe someday I'll meet the Grey Lady or hear the distant cries of a piper boy lost in the winding tunnels beneath the floor of the castle. Thank you so much for listening. Please like this video, leave me a comment, send this video to friends, and subscribe. It really helps me out, and I look forward to connecting with you. Bye.